good afternoon. Welcome to the October Historic Preservation Commission meeting, and thank you for joining us today. My name is John Milner, and I'm chair of the Historic Preservation Commission. Typical of HP, we have a full agenda, and it's my goal to get everyone out of here early. As a reminder, please limit individual conversations during the meeting. This ensures commission members and applicants can hear one another. Please remain quiet until you are called upon. When you speak at the podium, please state your name and address for our records. Before the commission votes on each item, I will ask if any members of the public wish to speak. Speakers are given 3 minutes to relay information to commission members. Please be thorough, but also mindful of your time. The agenda and documents for today's meeting are located on the PrimeGov site. If you're following along online, select Agenda on the right side of the Historic Preservation Commission meeting to see items being discussed. Written comments received more than 24 hours before today's meeting are posted online and were shared with the commission members. At this point, new materials may not be shared with the commission. So if you brought handouts, examples with you, please keep them at your seat as we cannot accept and review. I repeat, we cannot accept new information to review in today's meeting that was not submitted previously. Keith, would you like to call roll for us?
Milner.
Present.
Jordan.
Present.
McBride. Poor.
Present.
Ramey.
Present.
Wood.
Here.
Okay. Thank you. Procedures for today's meeting are noted in the agenda. For anyone unfamiliar with the process, please refer to the procedures section. There are 2 items we'd like to note specifically regarding this meeting process. These items involve certificate of appropriateness and appeals. Certificate of appropriateness. After an application is approved and the 10-day protest period expired, the Historic Preservation Officer will mail the certificate of appropriateness to the applicant. City construction permits cannot be issued until the CA is issued. Please contact HP staff for final design review, inspection, or to withdraw items that will not be completed. Appeal to Board of Adjustments. Any person aggrieved by a decision granting or denying a certificate of appropriateness may appeal to the Oklahoma City Board of Adjustments. All appeals shall be made within 10 days of the commission decision by filing a written notice of appeal to the clerk of the Board of Adjustments. Katie, any news from the Office of Historic Preservation Officer?
I just wanted to thank everyone who came to our camp a week or so ago, the Commissioner Assistance and Mentoring Program. We had a really great turnout, both from commission members and neighborhood representatives, and I thought it was a really great day-long workshop. So nothing else of business worthy to report.
Okay, acceptance of the minutes. Have commissioners had a chance to review the minutes from the September 4th meeting? And if so, do we have a motion to accept?
I will make a motion to accept the September 4th meeting minutes.
Okay, we've got a motion to accept. Do we have a second?
Second.
We've got a second. Commissioners, please cast your votes. Okay, the minutes have been accepted. Thank you. Next up, anything from code enforcement, Katie?
No particular items on the code enforcement report. As always, please reach out to staff or contact the Action Center if you have questions about any items that you see on that report.
Okay, next up, continuance announcements or request. I believe we have one.
We have one item, HPCA 24-00076 at 2215 Northwest 25th Street. They've requested to be continued to the December 4th meeting. So we do need a motion and a vote to make that continuance.
Okay. Katie, thank you. Do we have a motion to continue this item to the December 4th?
I'll make a motion to continue HPCA 24-00076 to the December 4th meeting.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second? Oh, got a second. Commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, that item has been continued. Next up, public hearings. I believe we've got one for a dilapidated structure. Katie,
Yes.
tell us about this.
So C24-58840 is at 101 Northwest 19th Street, Heritage Hills East, Ward 6, and this is specifically the structure in the rear at that property that is also listed under a separate address. This is a request to receive Historic Preservation Commission comments regarding the accessory duplex structure. in the process of being declared dilapidated by City of Oklahoma City Development Services Code Enforcement. The comments are to be pertaining to the contribution of the property to the historic integrity of the historic district and the effect of the proposed demolition on the historic character of the property and district. So when we have, this is a property that is in the process of being declared dilapidated by the City of Oklahoma City. It suffered a pretty significant fire recently, and that process goes from HP Commission for recommendation to City Council for final action to declare it dilapidated. So we are not, under this item, being asked to comment on the structural condition of the property, feasibility of restoration, any of those kinds of things. We are merely being asked in our expertise as the historic preservation body whether or not the property contributes to the integrity of the district and whether the proposed demolition would be a loss to the character of the property and district. So I believe staff did provide comments responding to that request, that it is a historic structure. It does contribute to the character of the property and the district. And there's language there for you all to make a motion with a recommendation. Oh, yep, and there's comments from the neighborhood regarding this and another property.
Okay, do we have anybody that wishes to speak on this item? The applicant? The applicant? Is the applicant present?
I don't think anyone from code enforcement was going to attend. We might have the property owner. Yes. So you're welcome to speak if you want, if you have something you'd like to share with the commission.
Okay.
That's fine.
Any public comments on this item? Okay, commissioners, any questions or comments or a motion or recommendation, excuse me?
No, I mean, I think I would be happy to make a recommendation that this structure is historic, retains historic integrity, and demolition will have a diverse effect on the historic character of the district. For item C2458840.
Okay, we've got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, we've got a recommendation for approval on that item. Next up, National Register nominations. I see we've got none.
Right.
Okay, that takes us to the consent docket. We've got 3 items on the consent docket today.
These are all items that were recommended for approval with no conditions, but the commission is welcome to pull any for further discussion or to ask questions of staff or of the applicants. Or you can make a motion to approve it as a whole.
Okay, commissioners, any comments or questions on any items on the consent docket?
No, I would make a motion to approve the consent docket, items 1, 2, and 3.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve items 1, 2, and 3 on the consent docket. Do we have a second?
Second.
We've got a second. Commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay. If you were on the consent docket today, congratulations, your project is approved. You have the option to stick around for the remainder of the meeting, or you may leave now. Okay, that takes us to items for individual consideration. We'll start with item 1, HPCA-24-00060 at 315 Northwest 26th Street. Katie, tell us about this project.
I'm going to just real quick read off the addresses from the consent docket just in case, since we have quite a few people here
Sure.
and nobody moved, just to make sure. So if you are here for 705 Northwest 41st Street, for 601 Northwest 42nd Street, or 101 Northwest 19th Street, all of those items have been approved as part of the consent docket. And you will get a copy of your approval documentations via email from staff in 10 business days. Okay, that's all.
Thank you, Katie.
Sure. Okay, back to individual consideration, item 1, HPCA 24-00060 at 315 Northwest 26th Street, Jefferson Park, Ward 2, Consideration and possible action on application by Juan Meza for Kirsten Scott Over the Top Roofing and Construction LLC for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace roof elective, 2, replace siding elective, and 3, replace windows elective. This item was heard in August and was continued. I believe the applicant was not present at the August with a request that quite a bit of additional documentation be submitted for further review. Received no additional, so we would recommend continuing it probably if we figure out November to allow them as much time as possible for the project.
The applicant present? Okay, does not appear that the applicant is present here. Do we have any members of the public that wish to speak on this item? No members of the public wishing to speak. Commissioners, do we have any comments?
I'll make a motion to continue HPCA 2400060 to the November 6th meeting.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion to continue, followed by a second. All other commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, that item has been continued to the November 6th commission meeting. Take us to the next. Item number 2, HPCA-24-00067 at 600 Northwest 21st Street.
This is in Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Holly Hunt, Sam Gresham Architecture for Jennifer Bergerow for a certificate of appropriateness to item 3, construct new covered porch at side elevation elective. The commission has seen this application previously and has approved all other items that were part of this overall project. Request that more information be provided about the relationship between the porch and the neighboring property. We did get some additional documentation. I think staff still felt that we were lacking some clarifications, spacing between the proposed porch and the eaves of the neighboring house. We've also raised the point that where one did not exist historically is not something that is supported by the guidelines between this and the neighboring house. This isn't something that staff saw a unique circumstance to support recommending approval. This application is out of continuance, is approval or a denial.
Okay, thank you. The applicant is present. Okay,
Hello.
please state your name and address for the record and tell us about the
Sure.
project.
Holly Hunt, Sam Gresham Architects at 400 Northwest 23rd Street. Yeah, third continuance, so I know we have to make a decision today. I appreciate the staff's recommendation, at least that it's without prejudice, because I felt like maybe we just ran out of time to come to something that's agreeable for everyone. And but I mean, I will say that despite the staff's feelings, specifically the 40% rule about new additions and new openings being 40% off the front of the house, you know, we're 1 foot 7 inches, so that proximity of the neighbor's house really helps to hide this from visible streetscape. So we've done everything we can do to shrink what I've shown you today. Space and worth it. So, you know, I think there's some feedback on the design. If there's somewhere we can pare this thing down and get it approved, I think we'd be thrilled. But let's see what you all have to say about it.
Commissioners, any questions, comments on this application?
I would just also mention, you know, they've been allowed to build right up to their property line, and you know, now my client's being told no. So again, there's a sense that it may be unfair that she can't do the same thing that they were allowed to do. But then, sorry, yes, turn it over to you now.
So Katie, if it were behind you said it was 1 foot,
1 foot 7 inches.
would it be appropriate then or still possibly not?
So I think there's a percentage for setback for adding or modifying windows and doors, you know, minimally visible, preferably at the rear, that sort of thing.
but specifically in the rear 40% of the house.
Holly, where are you getting that language?
It's here in the considerations, in the staff report, section C, page 4, sorry. So it says, visible or non-visible from the public right-of-way in the rear 40% of the house.
Okay, yeah.
And again, it mentions minimally visible, and, because the proximity of the neighbor's house, it's different than that existing carport, which we feel is a non-contributing structure, creating a really simple wood post, very simple little small deck under this roof that is, again, not tall. It will, in this view, will you see this? And while that 1.7 seems arbitrary, sorry, Commissioner Poor, but to your point about the floor plan, you can see that what we're doing is centering those new French doors, which will be wood. I'm sorry about the mistake in the composite. We will do a wood door. It's centered in the existing dining room, which is where that existing opening is. So we feel like it's more appropriate to be in that location. And so I've pushed the deck as back far as I can to pick up that opening, essentially.
As I said, referring to things like where you can change windows, where you can add a door. And the staff report says, some changes to side elevations are allowed by the guidelines, but typically minimally visible or not visible from the public rear 40%. So in staff's opinion, a porch with a roof is not a modest, minimally visible change. That would be, we're going to make the window at the rear of the house bigger or smaller because we're putting in a kitchen or something like that, not adding an entire feature onto the side of the house. So that's just to clarify where that 40% is coming from. That's language that refers specifically to changes to windows and doors, and we were just referencing that as how we evaluate where and when it's appropriate to modify the side of the house.
I actually have a question for staff. Like what, and the commission, what if it were just a deck and the French door off the kitchen so that my client can, under her overhang, have a small place to set a grill that's convenient for her family and an easy way to enter the house from the driveway rather than always going from the, because her older kids live with her. I mean, it would be nice for her to have an ability to stack cars in her driveway. So that's kind of the thought behind it. Now, I'll get back with my client, but would just a deck there and a new French door be something the commission would allow and just remove the cover from it altogether? Is that something that, I know that that's kind of throwing y'all for a loop, but I mean, I think that the idea here is probably the access point is most important. It would be nice if it were covered, but I think we can work with that. If the cover is, if the roof system itself is the big deterring item.
So when I look at the proposed first floor plan, I mean, it doesn't even look like it's remotely close to the rear 40%. It looks like it's more, like it starts at the front 40%, unless I'm not understanding it.
What I'm taking that from is the existing square footage, so it wouldn't include the proposed addition, because I'm taking it from the historic home, 40% of the historic original home.
Got it. Okay.
So that's where that number's coming from. Yeah, it's a pretty modest house, so 40% of a relatively shallow house is, 18 feet.
Katie, can you pull up that proposed first floor plan? Do you have that?
And you
Keith,
can
you
see,
share my screen?
sorry, you can see in the existing, there's this double window there. That's really the opening we're replacing. So even though it's considered a new opening in the staff report, we feel like we're really just swapping a window for doors, a set of doors.
So this is the existing first floor plan. And you can see the dining room labeled there, and the pair of windows is where the door is proposed. And then this is the proposed first floor plan with that addition on the rear having been approved already.
Yeah, and those little boxes on either side of the window jamb, that's actually representing it. The opening gets overall smaller, the roof opening just slightly. So it's, we're really pulling it back as much as we can for it to still make sense being centered in that room.
I think my struggle is getting out of the lines is it just feels uncommon to have a driveway that halfway dead ends into a deck. I buy what you're saying, that it's not really visible from the main thoroughfare. It is kind of this gunshot sliver that you're gonna have to look for to see it, but it just, in its execution, it just feels like something that is not, like it was added onto with no regulation, is sort of how it reads.
Yeah, like a little lacking in intention. I mean, it screams that it wasn't there originally, which I think on the front facing, I mean, you know, it's not maximally visible from Dewey, but it is from, 21st.
21st.
I think it just kind of, from such a visible spot in the, facing the street, screams that it was not original to the house, which the guidelines really shy away from on a visible facade.
Yeah, so if it were behind the fence, I mean, and I think that the solution and the constraints on such a small property, and I think you have a nice design solution outside of HP regulations for, the character of the neighborhood.
Of course.
I applaud the solution. I think it's just like if it were behind the fence,
Sure.
no issue.
No,
It's just
we
you
knew
see
this
it.
would be a hard ask.
Yeah.
It's no hard feelings.
It just feels out of place.
Fair enough. What about the deck? Can we briefly? That's not allowed either. So
I
it's
can't
still,
really see that
it's
it would be
really
very
just
different.
the opening doesn't fit here. The doors don't work here. Okay. I mean, commissioners, I think we've kind of beat this thing to death. I know y'all have a long day. I can go with my client. We'll come up with a better solution. Maybe just replacing and place that carport with a more appropriate historic design. Kind of making it fit the style of the property better, and we'll keep at it.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any members of the public that wish to speak on this item?
You did have one written comment from the neighborhood just concurring with staff.
Okay. No public comments? Commissioners, do we have a motion on this?
I will make a motion. Sorry, I was just confirming that this is this was your third pass. So I will make a motion to deny item 3 HPCA 24-00067 without prejudice, citing the specific findings in the staff report.
Okay, we've got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, that item has been denied without prejudice. Thank you. Okay, number 3, HPCA-24-00069, 832 Northwest 39th Street. Katie, tell us about this project.
This is Crown Heights Ward 2. This is Crown Heights Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application by Holly Hunt, Sam Gresham Architecture for Davis Hudeberg for certificate of appropriateness to 2, construct new garage elective, 3, replace and widen existing driveway elective, and 4, construct addition elective. Item 4, construct addition, was not seen by the commission previously. This is a new item. It is a very modest addition at the rear of the house, and staff did recommend approval of that item. The garage and driveway were seen previously. There was discussion of reducing the overall kind of size and mass of the garage, confirming that it was truly a 1.5-story, not a 2-story garage. Other design considered by the applicant. The applicant has made some design changes and submitted additional documentation on some of those points, and has also provided kind of a survey of the surrounding other types of garages and other accessory features are located. Staff has still recommended a continuance on the garage, not feeling that it's fully illustrated to meet the definition of a 1.5-story garage, particularly the usable floor area on that half-story, and looking at the overall height of the walls, and kind of leaving it to the commission to discuss whether or not the design has met with the guidelines as far as approximating the historic garage.
Okay, thank you, Katie. The applicant is present, I see. I do need you to state your name and address again
Sure,
for the
it's
record.
Holly Hunt, Sam Gresham Architects, 400 Northwest 23rd Street.
Okay, great.
Went back to my clients, tried to scale this thing down, and went back to a design that I think more accurately approximates the historic design of that garage. Even though, and the guidelines, I love the way they word this, and reasonably expand. Okay, so design can approximate the historic form, massing, and reasonably expand. So yes, while we are expanding it, I have reduced that front gable to a similar type of condition that you see here, where that open gable is kind of on the street drive view. It's kind of centers on that. So even though we're reasonably expanding, I think we are approximating that historic garage. The neighborhood survey, I think, is really important to consider here because it is very common, especially in the block, where this property and to the east, so 906 Northwest 39th through 800 Northwest 39th, we have multiple two-story or 1.5-story garages and a couple of two-story garages. And even on those properties where those larger accessory structures exist, we have swimming pools and even a third accessory structure like a pool cabana or another storage type shed or however the use. So I guess what I'm saying is this is the most modest garage on this stretch of the street. And so while I would say what the proposed garage is more of a hybrid between a 1.5-story and a 2-story, I'll admit, we feel that this is a more appropriate historic design for the neighborhood to maintain more green space in the backyard. Where what we're seeing that's very common, as you can see in this neighborhood survey, we have multiple sites that are almost completely no green space whatsoever. The whole idea here in this hybrid is from the street view, it does look like a 1.5-story. And in the rear, we have very large trees. We have very large 2-story additions on this whole row of homes. So this house, or this garage, even though it's, 20.5 feet tall, it is going to be much meager compared to the main house and the neighbor's house as well. So the view of that second story is only seen by the immediate two neighbors, and both of which have multiple outdoor structures and a 1.5-story garage themselves. So we feel that and I will say the 2.5, so the whole definition of 1.5-story, there's only like 2 ways in which we don't meet it. 67%, right, 2/3. Our square footage at 525 in the upstairs is right at 77%. So it's a 10% increase in what that is allowed, or what's defined as a 1.5-story. And secondly, I would just say how we're handling that street view. Now we've removed that dormer, and just to clarify, because in the staff report, I'm sorry, just the quick turnaround, I didn't get the dormer off the side view. But yeah, we've removed the dormer, again, just trying to minimize that little bit of guest suite that is for their in-laws to come and stay with them and keep their kids. Again, this is a young family. They want to stay in this neighborhood. They want to maintain their backyard. So they feel that while this modern improvement is appropriate, I mean, all their neighbors have made modern improvements in their rear yards. And we feel that this is an appropriate way to do so without overbuilding the lot. So I'd be happy to put it to you all and hear your thoughts.
Commissioners, what questions do we have for the applicant?
So it dropped about 2 inches is how I.
No, 2 feet.
20.
2 feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
20. Okay, 2 feet.
What I've done is actually reduce the pitch by a factor of 2, from 1412 to 1212. That would reduce the overall. So that rear portion, again, it is still considered a dormer. It's called a shed dormer, and you can tell that because it is consistent all the way through, including those rafter tails. So it will read as a dormer. It's just a taller dormer than 3 feet, which is what the 1.5-story defines it as.
Is the plan that's crossed out in the packet, A3.1, is that last submittal or is that
It probably is.
a previous
Sorry, I
version
didn't
of this
print-
submittal?
That was the previous version where before she dropped it the 2 feet.
Yeah.
So it goes from, it was that previously, that's what they proposed, and then they've come back with the one before that.
Okay, my memory is that it was steeper for some reason.
Yeah, it was. It was at 1412, and I dropped it to 1212. And if I forgot to change the note, that's because I had 3 days to do it. Terribly
No,
sorry.
I'm just trying to
Yeah.
I'm
track.
telling you, that's what it is. That's
Yeah.
how we were able to
Yeah, I don't think
reduce
the
it.
slope
Yeah.
got changed
Yeah.
on the.
And I think that's appropriate because again, from the street view, you get these little tiny glimpses of those rear garages. And here, I think we are approximating what's historic, but reasonably expanding. Even the expansion to the home gym on the main level, I mean, we're talking about 29 square feet. That's that's almost illegible as far as like it being that different. I think the easiest way to see an approximation of the historic form is the site plan, where I show them overlaid. I mean, there's very little change in the configuration of this historic site with this plan.
So what is the height of what was existing?
I've got
Of
that
the-
here. I mean, it was a one-story, and it was not very tall. It was, oops, that's the wrong one. Pardon me. Oh, wouldn't you know, I didn't bring that set because I thought we were done with it. It was probably like 14 feet, 15 feet, something in that range. That's a 7-foot door. So
Okay,
maybe
it
at its
looks like it was
tallest.
12, 3 and a half, yeah.
Okay, sorry, yeah. It's been a while
So
since
it's
I
going
looked at
from
those
12, 3 and a half,
existing.
and you're proposing now like 20 feet, 6 and a half. I mean, that still reads to me that's a 2-story to me.
Maybe a 1.5 story? Because that's what we want it to read from the street view. Because then that maintains that's the style that we're allowed to reasonably expand to, right? And all we're asking for is that maybe this little addition that we are stacking above that garage that's not visible from the historic, it doesn't have an effect. But it can make this work for the modern family. And that, I think, is where preservation are all about. And I think it's tastefully and respectfully done.
I think the problem for me is everybody's going to come in here and ask for the same thing, and they already do. So,
Well, but in the guidelines, it does allow if there's like, in the neighborhood, we see a lot of the same types of structures. And I think that I've proven in the survey, we do. So while it's a bit of an ask, I feel like the guidelines do support this type of reasonable expansion.
Well, living in the neighborhood, I also have a thought about the people that live behind it and how it changes their site views and the historic nature of their back view, which I know really isn't something that seems to really be considered, but at the same time, I mean, I know that this would, obviously, I wouldn't want this built behind my backyard. This
Even so
size,
beautifully as I've done it.
wouldn't want it. I mean,
You
it's
see,
just-
though, there are massive tree line on their back property. These trees are 75 plus tall.
How
feet
close
tall.
are they to the fence?
They are on the fence line.
Then they're going to be taken out by OG&E very soon. We've had meetings in the neighborhood about that.
I don't
Because
think
we
they-
have one in the fence line that OG&E has,
They
that
don't
we've
have
had meetings, right,
overhead
Molly?
They don't have that.
Community has been talking about coming through those alleys for
Yeah.
quite a long time and doing some deferred tree care.
Right.
I mean, I can speak to, I live on this block.
Sure.
I find it relatively compelling that there are many structures that approximate this size on this block, including some that must have been approved by HP prior
Yeah.
to
In
my
the
coming onto
2000s,
it. Because I know there's a
2015.
few that are new construction that look really similar. So as a relatively novice, commissioner, I do find that to be compelling. I actually think it fits the scale of the house and the scale of the block more than the original garage, which I know isn't, we're not looking to make everything match, we're looking to make it historic, but I find that to be a compelling argument.
Thank you, Commissioner McBride.
You know, the overall plan, I don't think, well, speaking for myself, I don't have an issue. I don't have an issue with the size, the massing, all that. I think it's fine. I think the objection has always been, does it approximate that from the street view? So, for whatever reason, what I'm looking at today seems less kind of in your face than the previous version, but the previous version,
We have had some reductions, yeah.
yeah, the one that's crossed out seems like it was just a couple of design critiques is, I think the gable needs to center. I know the original is over the, but I think the proposal center over the door. And I think that maybe that's if the commission is.
Small as my clients are willing to shrink that upper level, it just becomes not really suitable. Because what you're saying, I think what you're looking at now, that gable centers on the drive. Like it's a 10, it's 10 or 11 feet wide rather than 7. And so while I understand what you're saying, I mean, what you're asking me to that whole room entirely.
What I'm saying is it needs to shift over.
Center
18
onto the 2
inches.
doors?
Yeah.
Is that what the reason and that's something, because my clients were like, it feels like that gable needs to center over the door. So that I actually increased it from my original design and then talked them into, shrinking it back in that asymmetrical design, which I feel that is the historic, design quality of the whole front facade of this garage, is that they feature centered on the drive itself.
Yeah, I think it misses in the middle of the two.
Yeah.
So I think it
it's
either
hard 'cause
needs
you
to
don't
be.
You don't look at it in 2D like that, right? Like how you guys are looking at it. So
Yeah, you would
kind of have
see-
to use your imagination.
It
in
would
a
look odd.
sense.
It would look odd in 3 dimensions. It either needs to shrink and shift to be intentionally asymmetric, or it needs to stay like it is, in my opinion, and shift to the right.
Just be
to center.
centered on the
And,
doors.
and I think the scale of that gable, I think the pitch, I think you're right on with, in my opinion. I think the scale of the gable would be whatever the rest of the commission's appetite is for 1.5 story interpretation. But I think it is definitely in the right direction. I think the scale and the massing looks great to me personally. I would center that. And then just a recommendation, if this is a continuance and you come back for the final, having the endorsement of the neighbor behind.
I expected that.
May be pretty persuasive.
It's funny. I sure will. Thank you.
Just a couple of 2 cents for me. I would appreciate this just being proposed as a 2-story because I think it's going to present a problem down the road because we're supposed to be able to
Fair enough.
administratively approve and allow for 1.5 stories, and this just really is not. Let's just call it a 2-story and evaluate it as a 2-story.
Yeah, I think that's fair. That's why I use the word hybrid, because I understand that. And that's why the neighborhood survey, I'm trying to get you to understand, while, we could easily go ahead and, according to what everyone else in the neighborhood's been able to go ahead and do another building that's a separate little, bedroom quarters for the in-laws. But it would be more advantageous for us to stack them so that we can maintain more yard and more green space.
I get
So
that.
that's- while I know, I am just saying, is there a way that those two kind of offset?
Yeah, I just think the guidelines don't allow for any sort of hybrid language, so we need to classify it as one thing. or
Right.
the other.
No, I understand. Yeah, I completely understand. Maybe that becomes a unique circumstance for converting to a 2-story because we see, multiple structures, and here we're just combining them into one footprint.
Commissioners, we've kind of addressed the number 2, the garage. Does anybody have any questions or comments for the applicant on number 3 and number 4, replace and widen existing driveway and the addition?
No, we're happy with the recommendation.
Is there anybody else that wants to speak?
Yeah. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak on this item? Does not appear any members of the public wish to speak on this item. Commissioners, any final comments, or do we have a motion?
I do have a comment or a question for staff, for Katie, on item 3, where we're going back to saying the new concrete for driveways shall match the aged appearance and design details, color, and texture. We seem to be flip-flopping a little bit on that. I thought we had moved away from that, and I just didn't know if it's just still there because it still exists in the guidelines, but we've moved away from it. So we're just going to keep reading it, but
Yeah, I mean, that's what the guidelines say for new concrete, but they don't specify how that's achieved. So staff is not really encouraging people to add artificial tints and dyes and things to concrete, but we do still want, especially by the time that 1-year CA expiration date rolls around, the concrete to not be bright white, see it from outer space.
okay.
Yeah.
I know that's actually one of the things that my neighbors tend to fixate on a little
Yes,
bit. So
yes.
I'd love to
I
see
know
it
it's
just
been-
out of there
I know it's been coming
entirely.
up a lot
Yeah.
with various projects, and it's on our list of something to address the next time we do an update. Yeah.
I actually do have a question. Do you all feel in line with Commissioner Remy about centering the gable as a way to kind of minimize it from the street view?
I feel that it should be centered
Okay.
over the garage doors. I think it's another thing that looks unintentional and, just wouldn't have been part of the original. The original garage doors would have been smaller, of course, and so if this were built originally, it would have matched up with the garage bays or, whatever type of garage opening it had.
I'm in agreement, and I appreciate Commissioner Jordan's approach of, that's why I'm like, if you call it 1.5, I don't think this is 1.5.
No, I
If
agree,
you-
guys.
if we
I'm not
can-
fighting that.
If you propose a unique circumstance because it's already in existence, numerous spots on the block for a 2-story, then I would feel more comfortable trying to get there than stretching the 1.5.
I'm in agreement with that.
Hey, Commissioners, do we have a motion on any of these?
Do you want approval on the first 2?
Oh, yes, please. Anytime we can tick off boxes, that's a good thing, right?
Me too.
I'll motion to approve items 3 and 4 on HPCA, where are you? 24-00069 with the findings stated in the staff report.
Okay, we've got a motion for approval on items 3 and 4. Do
Second.
we have a second? We've got a second. Commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov.
So is this something that, if we're all in agreement with centering that bay, is this somewhere we can get to approval with me submitting that design to staff? Since and submitting it as a 2-story with a unique circumstance that it is appropriate for this historic neighborhood or specific street block? Can we get there today?
I would probably prefer it come back. It's the 2-story thing for me. Like, I just kind of want that really clear on the record that we have reviewed this as a 2-story
Sure.
and come to a decision, yay or nay, with the knowledge that it's being proposed as a 2-story.
And I imagine the second floor will shrink as a result of centering that gable, just by the very nature. So, yeah, I'm fine with that. Let's go ahead and continue it, and we'll knock it out of the park next month.
Holly, what commission meeting would you like to continue it to?
Sooner the better.
Okay. Is that November?
That
That's going
is
to be November?
November
November.
6th.
Okay,
Yep.
November 6th.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
And Holly,
Commissioners,
I'd
do we
just
have a
make
motion?
sure to really articulate what that unique circumstance
Sure will.
visibly in our packets.
Happy to do it. Yeah, I can give even more information on those 2-story garages in the neighborhood and when they were built.
Do we have a motion for continuance on this
I'll
item?
motion to continue item 2 on HPCA-24-00069
Second.
to the
Oh.
November meeting.
And that's the 6th,
November
right?
6th.
November 6th? Okay. Do we have a second? I'm sorry.
Second.
Oh, we do, okay. Commissioners, please vote. Okay, that item has been continued to the November 6th commission hearing. Okay. Number 4, HPCA-24-00074 at 837 Northwest 42nd Street. Katie, tell us about this project.
This is in Crown Heights, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application by Bob Sign Construction for Stephen Randolph for certificate of appropriateness to, 1, replace all windows, elective. This is the first time the commission has seen this application. We are recommending continuance at this time. We did get a window survey of all windows from the applicant, but in many of the photos, we cannot adequately judge the condition of the windows because they are covered by mini blinds from the inside, they're covered by storm windows from the exterior, and we could not judge the extent to which the actual window sash needed to be repaired, as opposed to there are certainly some, there is wood trim surrounding the windows that definitely needs to be repaired and replaced. So we would ask for more legible documentation of the condition of the windows. Staff did go out in the field and take photos as well, and did feel that the windows were certainly in need of significant work, but again, without having storm windows off so that we can see them, without having clearer shots from the interior, we were not ready to say that every window on the house warranted replacement. And then in addition, we did not have window documentation that we could verify met the applicable guidelines as far as replacement windows when windows needs to be replaced. They do appear to be proposing a simulated divided light with spacer, that sort of thing. So clearer documentation of what that replacement window product would be if replacement is deemed to be appropriate would also be needed. So we did recommend a continuance on this one.
Okay, thank you, Katie. I assume you're the applicant?
I am the
Okay,
contractor.
please state your name and address.
Bob Sign
Okay.
Construction.
And your address?
Mr. Randolph's residence is 837 Northwest 42nd.
Okay, tell us
Okay.
about the project.
Mr. Randolph lives in the house. It's approximately 95 years old, which is the oldest house in the neighborhood. Next to him is the newest house in the neighborhood that was rebuilt, two-story. There's not even appropriately looking like any of the windows in that whole neighborhood. We are asking to replace these because of the condition of them. They're 95 years old. We are not asking to change any of the mullions or how the windows looked. We're just looking for a better window that would be appropriate for this neighborhood. They're in very bad condition. It's hard to tell. We've taken pictures, but the pictures don't really show the damage that's existing. And Mr. Randolph would like to see if we could get them replaced. We have a Pella window that is called Lifestyles that is used, and actually the Lifestyles in 615 Northwest 50th of August of 22, full replacement with these windows. Also 821 Northwest 38th, July 24th, the same windows, all the windows were replaced in that residence. So that's what we're bringing forth to the commission.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, what questions do you have for the applicant?
I don't really have a question so much as, you know, we get, obviously, windows are a pretty big and contentious issue here on the commission. Had a couple of cases in Crown Heights last couple of months asking for full window replacements all over the house, and we've asked them to remove the storm windows and appropriately document. So, I mean, I don't, even in reading the staff report, it sounds like there is certainly a justifiable expectation of giving a full replacement should the documentation reflect what we expect to be there. But just to be really cautious and dot all of our I's and cross all of our T's, I think we'd ask for as much documentation as you can provide on each of the windows, and ideally take the storm window off of at least, well, we'd love it if it was one per facade, but we went over this a couple of months ago about how tricky
Will we
that
have to
can be.
remove every storm window because that, takes a lot of the
I'll defer to staff there. We kind of went round and round on this with another applicant
Yeah,
last month.
I think we kind of landed on if we can get one or two off per side of the house. We know that sometimes one side of the house or two sides of the house will get a lot more weather impact than others, so we want to make sure that we're not taking one or two sets of windows that are really rough and assuming that every other window's in the same condition.
Well, some of them are not as bad as, some are really rough. On the front end, which is be the south side and the west side, they're all have mullions in them, and the other side, the north side and the east side are double pane, 1/1s. Okay, okay, so there's two different types of on there, so.
I think what always causes pause for me when everybody comes in and asks for all of the windows replaced, and I'm looking at a picture that's under a porch with 3 windows, and it's clearly not as exposed to weather and rain. So my question is, are we just going for the bulk, or do those really need to be replaced?
Well, I would say they don't look the same. I mean, Pella has a window, but now if you put all of them on the, 3 different on the front, you got 3 different looks, 2 different looks on the front. Same with the other windows. So if you want to do them, you want to do them to enhance the value of the house and the quality.
Yeah, I mean, I would, tend to say if we are allowing for a replacement of 95% of the windows, I could get there on the other 5%. Should it come to that next? I mean, I hear you loud and
I
clear.
think just like articulating
yeah.
that maybe, as opposed to they're all in such disrepair that every single one needs to be replaced.
Yeah.
Which may not be fully the truth. It may be the argument that 90% of them need to be replaced, and at that point, it would seem silly to keep 3 windows.
And just creating like a better maintenance
Absolutely.
cycle for current and future homeowners for, things to have been systematically replaced at once, I think is really important to preservation as a whole, because it keeps people able and on track, not always having to do this type of work and come see us.
I would say the point of the guideline and the reason that we do ask to see each window is that the intent is that the replacement window is indiscernible from the historic window, at least from the street. So it shouldn't matter that this one's a replacement over here and this one's a historic window over here, because the replacement's supposed to look the same. And if the problem is that they don't look the same, then we need to find a different replacement window, because that's not a close enough match and that's not meeting the guideline. And that's another piece with the window documentation that we have. We don't really have a good representation of the appearance of the replacement window. So making sure assuming this is continued and comes back, staff's happy to work with the applicant on making sure we have really clear illustration of what, not just the little spec drawing that you can't see any detail, but an actual detail of the window, the brick mold, the mullions, the muntin profile, all those bits and pieces.
Okay, Commissioners, any other questions for the applicant on this item? If not, do we have any members of the public that wish to speak on this item? Okay, there being none? Yes, absolutely. If you would please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Stephen Randolph, and I live at 837 Northwest 42nd.
Okay, thank you.
As Mr. Sine indicated, these windows are 100 years old, most of them. And they are held together with strapping tape and rags stuffed at the top. I certainly can understand why you would want clear pictures of this. And I'd like to also explain why I have storm windows. Because when I looked several years ago at replacing the windows, without even looking at this end of the process, it was going to cost me $16,000. The storm windows were $6,000. Obviously, I went with the alternative that I could swallow at once. And here we are all these years later, and Mr. Sine indicated these windows are 100 years old. They're held together with strapping tape and rags. If you took the front off some of these, I don't know that the wind and the rain wouldn't come straight through. Some of the top, these dividers, it's shrunk away from the glass. So would rain come through there? Yeah, probably. So I can appreciate that we want to keep this in the spirit of the Historical Preservation District, and we're really trying to do that. But I can't feature how anybody, again, if they could see them clearly, I mean, come on, that's 100 years old. You can see, I mean, even with the storm windows it leaks. You know, I've recaulked these things, I've sanded and painted these things, no kidding, 3 times. There's 26 windows in this thing. I used to work in a school, and that's what I did during the summer, is I'd come out, scrape all this stuff off, and redo it. And I'm trying to get a more permanent solution, obviously. And I can appreciate what the task that you all are faced with. And believe me, I do not want, the last thing I want is for my house not to fit in. It's mentioned that the newest house in the neighborhood is next to me, and it does not fit in. The house next to me burned. And they built something that was not in the spirit or the architectural style of the neighborhood. And they had to submit their plan 3 times because they wanted to build it twice as big as it is, and they wanted 2 complete stories on this house. The peak on it is 28 feet, mine's 24. So it was bigger than my house, lots bigger than my house. So again, I'm not unaware of the fact that you guys have to stay within the guidelines. But I don't see, personally, just looking at it, and having lived with it even, and having lived with the energy bills that this is costing me, because that's another thing, I don't see any way around this except to try to get it to where we can replace them all. And if we need to pull some windows off and take some more pictures, we're certainly willing to do that. I want to cooperate in any way that I can. But at this point, I would like to see if there is a way to go forward with this. And I'd be more than willing to do whatever you guys think. Do you have any recommendations? I guess I should ask for that.
Katie, would you feel comfortable if documentation was submitted to staff? Would you feel comfortable making a decision without it coming back to commission?
I think based on what staff saw in the field, if we have better document, and even if, I would love it if we could get some storm windows off. If there are concerns about the stability of the windows and removing the storms, I certainly
Once
don't
they come
want
off, they won't go back on.
I don't want you to do damage. Even just pictures of the windows from the inside without something in front of them, because we have a lot of
Okay,
interior
so raise
photos.
the
So pull
blinds
the
and
blinds
the
up, move
curtains and all
that
that.
sort of thing. And then I can work with Bob on what we need as far as documentation of the
Okay.
replacement window,
Okay.
so that we can confirm
Okay.
that that meets the criteria.
Well, I appreciate that consideration being made, because like I said, you can tell I'm pretty concerned about this.
Yeah.
Have you,
Because we've sunk a bunch of money into the house already and want to keep improving it.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, this is the last thing we have to do on the outside, and then we can start on the inside, because it's an old house and it needs work still.
Commissioners, do we have any last questions for the applicant?
have you spoken with a window preservationist, other than just deciding that they all are in such disrepair?
No, I haven't. I just think it would be cost prohibitive. I mean, the work that's going to go into that, you got to take them out, clean everything up, and you're going to try to use wood that's 100 years old to rebuild them. No.
I mean, I
can't-
think that
I
there
can't.
are methods, and I think they're starting to go away from taking them fully out now, but is that right, Katie?
Depending on what the condition is that they're in, we did do a 2-day workshop a few weeks ago and restored 4 windows at the Harn Homestead without taking them out of the openings. But that's also dependent upon what's happening within the opening already and if they're still
Well,
plumbing.
the other thing is somehow, these things have weights in them, and some of the weights have been cut.
Yeah.
So as far as raising and lowering
They've
the
got
windows.
solutions for those now too, to counteract the weights, to provide a way to keep the
Yeah,
windows
well,
up
okay,
without
and I can
using
appreciate
weight.
what you're saying, but if I look at this and it's like, well, let's just say this, 4 to 6 times as much to fix a window, I don't have any options.
Yeah,
Rebuild
that-
what? I mean,
that-
seriously.
That's my question, is that what the difference is between having them
I don't know.
preserved
I don't have
and
any, because
restored and-
again, I saw that just, and maybe this is a bad way to say it, but just from a common sense standpoint, what takes more time to do? Take one out, put in an insert, take one out, clean it up, reinforce it, repaint it, resand it, do all that, and put it back in. One job takes an hour, the other takes a day. And again, I can appreciate this is an old house, and we want to try to do it right. And I think you can see, we have made some effort at doing that. But this window issue is something that, and again, if you tell me to pull get some more documentation, we'll do that. It's not a problem. If you want me to take some of the windows off, we do that too if you need me to. We have to be careful with that about the ones we take off, because if they're in too bad a shape, you're kind of working against yourself.
I mean, my opinion is still, let's get the documentation over to staff and see if they think it's very clear that replacement is the more logical solution. And
Okay.
if it's not, we'll see you again next month, but maybe there will be enough documentation.
Would there be,
Yeah.
does it work like, okay, let's say, for example, we look at this and you decide that it's, say, if you do it this way, I don't know, but 90%. 90%. Does that mean only 90% of the windows get done? Or does that mean at that high level, you just say, well, if it's that high, we might as well go ahead and do them all?
I think
Because
that
it stands to reason, if it's that bad, it's not going to get any better.
I believe that if there was, say you have, I'm making, I think, did you say 26 windows?
Mm-hmm.
So, I think if staff said, okay, yes, there's very clear cause that 20 of these have to be replaced.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
if you wanted to continue replacing, those last 6 would come back to the commission.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
And if we get them manufactured by Pella, they all ought to match well enough.
Great question for staff.
I think that's a detail that Katie was saying
That's-
she
that's-
needs.
Yeah.
We need better drawings of
Because,
the specific
and I understand that too,
window.
but if you do them all at once, obviously they'll all match.
Right, all the
We'll be
ones that get
piecing it
replaced
out.
will all match each other.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
We want them to match what's there existing.
Yeah.
Not only each other, but
No, I
That was
realize,
there,
yeah.
yeah.
Like the front ones have that dividers in the top, and I'm not sure what's it, Mullins, something? I don't know. It's a new word.
Muntins.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, the ones around the other side, they don't have that. So you don't even have, and those are original. What they did, I'm sure is, see, there you go. These don't, nobody sees these, the ones in the front they did. So that, to me, that top part's more decorative, and that's why they did it. But again, it doesn't match.
Commissioners, do we have any other comments, or do we have a motion prepared for this one?
it's, Katie, would this be a continuance and then you could approve it if he brings it back?
So staff
you?
cannot approve windows. We cannot
that's right.
administratively approve windows. You can approve it with the condition that they submit additional documentation to staff, and then if we don't get to a point through that submittal where we feel like we have what we need, we could still bring it back to the commission.
I would
You would
feel
have to approve it
comfortable
with
with that if
conditions.
you all do.
Could we approve it that if you receive documentation that you're comfortable with up to a certain percentage, that we would allow for all of them to, like, could we choose, say if if you see documentation on 22, we're going to be okay with 26?
Yep, you all can condition it however you like.
Okay. So I guess what we need to do is take some more pictures and get them back to you guys.
Well, we still have to vote on what that.
Yeah.
Sorry. I don't
Either
mean to get ahead of
way,
you.
it looks like you're headed to taking more pictures and getting back.
Yeah.
But what we're wondering is, can we do it where if the pictures are suitable to staff, you don't have to come back to this
Oh, okay, okay.
body again?
I appreciate that.
We're not sure if we're doing that yet, but there seems to be at least a couple people that would be amenable to it.
I still struggle with just replacing windows, just to replace windows, even if it's just 90% of them. Like Katie said, the goal is for the replacements to look like they have historically been there. So I would have a hard time replacing the ones under the porch, assuming those are in much better condition, just because.
Well, we could certainly motion to approve with the agreed upon condition that if it goes to staff, anything that staff deems in need of replacement and receives documentation on, we could administratively approve that, or, approve it with this condition. And then anything else would just come back to us. It may be one window, it may be none, it may be 10.
If we knew that we had windows, or we had a proposal here that we have windows that would match the existing windows, I probably wouldn't have a problem with that. But when we have both sides lacking, one, the documentation that they need to be replaced, coupled with the fact that we don't have sufficient documentation as to what the replacement is going to be, how it matches, is it historically correct? I just don't feel comfortable doing that.
And I would feel comfortable with, on both ends, actually saying that if staff is satisfied, I'm satisfied. But
But
that's
y'all
me
better
personally.
race to a motion,
Yeah.
one of you.
Okay. In regard to HPCA-24-00074, I would make a motion to continue the matter to the November docket upon specific findings that staff has stated in their report.
Should we confirm that if this is a motion that you would, to be continued, he's making a motion to be continued, and he's recommending the November 6th meeting, which would mean information would need to be submitted back to Katie
By next week, basically, yeah. We can get with,
There you are. We can do that?
Is that okay?
Okay.
Can I ask one other thing I'd like to say? is,
Go ahead.
Could staff look up the other replacements that we talked about that were done in July 24 at 821 Northwest 38th? All the windows were replaced, and it's approved by the here. And
Is this on this application, or are you talking about?
No, I'm talking about these specific windows were Pella that we're
Okay.
proposing.
What, if you have other addresses where these have been installed, I would say send me an email with those addresses and we'll look that up and confirm what the situation was there.
They were total replacements of all of
Okay.
them, so.
Okay, thank you.
So, I mean, the precedent is there.
Yeah, okay, we've got a motion to continue to the November 6th commission
I will
meeting.
second
Do we have a
that
second?
motion.
We've got a second. Commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, this item has been continued to the November 6th commission hearing.
And can I make one quick statement? I would say that if you're going to take pictures from the interior with the raised curtains or where they're unobstructed, it looks like there might be some lighting challenges in some of those rooms. Like they might just, and I get it, I live in the neighborhood, they might be insufficiently lit. But if you could even get like a shop light and shine it, it might help provide some more information.
I can figure
That's a
something
great idea.
Thank you, great.
out. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, next up, number 5, HPCA-24-00083 at 1021 Northwest 37th Street.
This is in Crown Heights, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application by Trina Bose North, Crown Heights United Methodist Church, for certificate of appropriateness to 1, install wrought iron gates surrounding HVAC units on east side of the sanctuary required, and 2, install light fixture at east window of sanctuary required. And yes, we have 2 different Crown Heights churches on, which is highly unusual for us, but you're not seeing double or a typo.
No, we're Crown Heights Methodist, not Crown Heights
Yes,
Christian.
yes. So this, the gates are already there, which is why this says required. These are basically providing security for the HVAC units and not really screening, although they are somewhat screened by landscaping that is in place. And then the light fixtures have also been installed. These are mounted on the exterior of the church to provide lighting from the exterior through to the interior through the stained glass windows. We did recommend a continuance on, let me double check what our wording says here. The concern on the light fixtures is that it is, a fixture that is attached to the building that is clearly not a historic fixture, and that the recommendations for lighting would be that either a fixture attached to the building should look historic and should be mounted in such a way that it would have been mounted historically, or if you're trying to light architectural features of the building, that's something that should be done from the ground and not attached to the building and done in a less obtrusive way. On the gates at the HVAC units, we did recommend approval of that with just condition that additional landscaping be installed to provide some more screening of those HVAC units. So.
Okay, thank you. I assume you're the applicant?
I am not. I am not Trina Bose North, but she had a conflict. She couldn't be here tonight. She asked me to speak for her.
Okay, please
My name is
state-
Jim
Yep,
Rust.
and your address?
I live at 3300 Brook Hollow Road, Oklahoma City.
Okay,
I am on her management resource team, as is Mr. Endicott. And she asked us to come and just kind of explain why we did what we did, help you understand the reasoning for the cage around the air conditioners and the new lighting. We'll start with the cages around the air conditioners. Those systems were put in maybe 10, 15 years ago, complete new air conditioning systems and furnaces. You can't see those, the furnaces are in the basement. But when we did that, it was recommended, and this is an older picture without the top, it was recommended that we put the metal cage around the air conditioners to protect them from theft. And that worked for several years But then in the winter of 2021, unbeknownst to us, somebody jumped our fence and took the copper out of all 6 units. So that cost us a tremendous amount of money to get that repaired. Not only were the units damaged because they had absorbed moisture over the winter, but then replacing the copper all the way into the furnaces. Working with the insurance companies, they said before they would do anything to help us, we had to put a top over them. So we had a design made to fill in the gaps between the peaks and put a top over the cages, making it secure. And the only way that we could secure that top at the church was to actually bolt it into the church, the railing. I don't know if we got a good picture of that, but there are probably 8 to 10 bolts putting that into the concrete and into the masonry of the church itself. That was what we kind of understood was the biggest problem, was the fact that we have potentially damaged or upset the construction of the church by making it susceptible to moisture getting through the mortar or the bricks. Quite honestly, we never even thought about that. We did talk about it, and we just decided that the easiest way to make sure that didn't happen was to go through and caulk it right now along the top edge of that against the bricks, and then put in a regular maintenance system to make sure that we never had any kind of moisture get in there. So the cages were in existence. The top is what was added, and the top is what we understand is the conflict right now. But we had to have that to keep people out, keep them from stealing our copper anymore. As far as the lights go, I think you've got a picture of 1 or 2 of the lighting system that used to be in place. And I like to refer to it as a Charlie Brown Christmas tree. It was horrible, ugly, looked like old lights on a drag strip. We had those things repaired once. They lasted for just a few weeks. They went out again. We had them replaced with LED bulbs, and they continue to go out. So we finally had an electrician come out and decided that the only way we could fix it was to replace all of the wiring and all of the fixtures in it. At that point in time, we thought, well, how are we going to get around this thing? And we talked to a designer, an electrical designer, and he came up with the plan you see right there. You can see it is attached to the church, 3, 6, 9, 24 bolts hold it in place into the concrete and into the brick and the mortar. That frame is probably, I'm going to guess, I was able to pick it up with the help of another person. It probably weighs 100, 125 pounds. So it's not heavy, it is light. Yeah, it is pretty stinking ugly in color. We didn't like the black at all. Our thoughts were go in and paint it the same color that we painted the cages, or paint a red to match the bricks to make it less visible. At one point in time, from the street, you couldn't even see that it was there because we had a tree blocking it, but then we lost the tree. So now it's out there in plain sight. So that's really our reasoning for putting that up. None of us were just extremely happy with it, but if you could see the way those stained glass windows look from the inside now, it's incredible. It's the first time I've been at that church for 8 years, and it's the first time I'd ever seen the real beauty of those stained glass windows from the inside. So
Okay,
if
thank
you
you.
have any questions, I'll take them, and any suggestions, I'll take them.
Okay, commissioners, what questions or comments do you have for the applicant?
I don't really have any problem with the HVAC cages. I think it's just an unfortunate necessity, and I'm sorry that happened to you. To me, it's the lights, and I appreciate that you said you don't think it looks that great either, but it kind of is what it is. So, I mean, if there are, I know y'all have already expressed that you've explored several other avenues, but it certainly does detract from the historic nature of the building.
I think it would disappear. Well, it's not going to disappear, but I think it would blend in better, just like the cages around the air conditioners, if we painted it something other than black.
It would probably be, it'd be hard not to be an improvement.
It would be an improvement. Are there not any more modest lighting systems that would accomplish the effect that you're looking for inside? I mean, it just looks,
Those are.
Really industrial.
Yeah, those are approximately 10-foot stained glass windows each, about 3 feet apart, or 3 feet each. And we talked about it, and we talked about it, and we tried to come up with a lighting system that would effectively light each window individually. And the only way we could come up with was some sort of cage to get the LEDs centered on each window.
You know, I don't know what type of lumen or foot candle output you're
Extruded
looking.
aluminum.
Right, I'm saying, I don't know what kind of output you're trying to achieve from the lighting itself, but to me, this should be concealed into the jamb, both sides of the stained glass window from the outside, similar to way the Plow building has done.
We had talked about that, but if you looked at it, there's really, you've only got like this much space between the framing of the window and the stained glass and the brick, the exterior of the brick. It really didn't allow us any room to put those lights in there. And even if we had done that, we would have still been attaching them to the brick and mortar.
Right, but I think there's a less obtrusive execution in this detail. I mean, even if it's an extension of a casing on the outside or a jamb, a concealed deflector to send that, throw it back towards the window. It seems like there should be other options than this sort of framed cage.
Yeah, you would think like a lighting design expert would be able to come up with a solution that's less invasive to the exterior of the building.
I think staff, yeah, I think staff would be more supportive of a more traditional looking, I mean, even a gooseneck light fixture that's shining light down toward the building. And I also think that the building wasn't built for these to be lit at night. I mean, that wasn't the historic purpose, and I am sure it's beautiful, but I don't think that there's necessarily a requirement that these windows have to be fully lit from the exterior, because that's not the historic design of the church.
Yeah, and I was having that same thought, Katie, like during the day when it's naturally daylight outside, when you're inside, it's beautiful.
It is
But then
pretty.
at night, when the inside is lit, and then it shines to the outside, so that's when you're outside and people passing by get to see the beautiful stained glass windows when it's lit inside. So that's how I've always interpreted stained glass, and I think this just distracts so much from the exterior.
and you also mentioned that there had been a large tree there, is that correct?
There was a large Bradford pear.
Is it possible that some of the light dilution, the natural light dilution that occurred when the tree was there is no longer an issue now that the tree is gone?
It's possible, definitely possible, but the reason we wanted the light to light them, we do a lot of stuff at night in the church. We have weddings and ceremonies and everything else. But then if you looked at this church on a Sunday morning at 8:30, it's not light outside, it's not dark. And if it's a cloudy day, it's just dull. You know, with those lights on a cloudy day or early in the morning or at night, you get the full beauty of the church no matter what it looks like.
I could definitely, I hear both of those points, and I could definitely get on board with the desire to have it lit in some capacity, just probably not this capacity. But, you know, I understand that it's an element that you all could provide to people inside the church now that maybe wasn't the original intent of the stained glass, but certainly would be beautiful. For me, it would probably have to be a solution that's less extreme.
And to what you're saying, we didn't do it for people driving down the street. We did it for the people inside the church that see the windows.
Sure, but you also have to realize our purview is for
I
the
understand.
people
I
driving.
understand. I understand. And that's why, again, we weren't real crazy about the black, but we did feel like if we just painted them a color that would match the bricks or even the cages around the air conditioners, which nobody ever complained about. No one said that the cages around the air conditioners were unattractive or took away from the beauty of the building. If we did the same thing with that frame, we're not going to make it disappear, but we
I
can
think the
certainly make
difference
it
is
blend in.
the air conditioners aren't beautiful themselves, so you're distracting from something that is beauty. You're like beautiful, and again, I still struggle with the fact that you're kind of reversing the flow of the stained glass windows by shining the light at night inside, as opposed to letting the light shine out to the street.
Well, it doesn't, those frames, I'm not sure exactly what you're saying, I'm sorry, but in no way, you see a shadow on that right now from the big oak tree right there. But on a nice, bright, sunny day, those 3 lights aren't in any way affecting what comes through from the outside to the inside. They're gorgeous in sunlight.
Right, and then in the evening time, if you have the lights inside the church on, then from the exterior, the people that are passing by get to see that same beautiful glow back out to the streets.
Depends on how much light you've got at the altar, and I can't tell you we've got that much light in there. I don't know if I've never looked at that. I've never looked to see if you can see the color coming through the lights at night from the outside.
So I think, if I'm on, okay, so I'm not opposed to lighting these. I think there is a jam solution that does that needs to be pursued if that's what you want to do, but there is no condition or explanation that you're going to give me that this is going to be acceptable.
Agreed. I would also like to hear a solution or a proposal of how, once you remove the bolts and things from the brick, how to keep it protected.
You'd have to epoxy them.
Okay, commissioners, any other questions for the applicant? Do we have any members of the public that wish to speak on this item? Okay, there be none.
I think my question for Katie is this a continuance, a denial with prejudice, a denial without prejudice? What is the appropriate motion for the
I
lighting?
think if the applicant is willing to consider some alternatives for the lighting,
Sure.
then it would be a continuance. And I would probably do 2 months so that you have more time to research that and see what your options are. And I would, with the amount of discussion that has taken place, I would want that to come back to the commission. I wouldn't want it to be just a defer to staff.
Okay, commissioners, do we have any motions on these two here?
What's the December meeting date?
I think it's the 2nd.
Yeah, December is the,
Oh,
Said it was
really,
later than.
December is the 4th. We did recommend approval with the condition that some additional landscaping be beefed up
Yes,
around the HVAC cages. I think there used to be more landscaping in that corner that kind of blocked the view of the HVAC, and just kind of refreshing that so that they're screened
Okay.
from view.
Well, we already had plans to put in a new tree.
Yeah.
Just wasn't going to be a 30-foot tree. I can't
Yeah.
afford that.
Well, and just to clarify for you what it sounds like we're headed towards a motion that would likely approve with the condition of additional landscaping, the HVAC issue as recommended in the staff report, most likely, and we're headed towards something
They-
that needs your feedback on the lighting.
Okay.
Which is, I do not think you're going to get, it seems like you're not going to get to an approval of what is there today. So your options are for us to deny it, and in which case, you know, you would have to take it down, or we could continue it while you research
We're going to continue it.
lighting options. Now, but you would probably need to come back with some additional lighting options, I would think.
Okay, if I came back with additional options in, do I present that to you all, and you all say, well, we like this, we like this? I
Well,
mean,
you'll get the
do or don't.
documentation to staff. After this meeting, you'll work with staff, and they'll kind of give you the timeline, and you'll get that documentation so we can collectively,
Sure.
in December, the December 4th? Is it December 4th meeting, we'll do just like we're doing here, but we'll have kind of images of what you're proposing that we'll
Okay.
get to look at.
On the wrought iron gates around the air conditioning units, do I have a problem there? Can we say that's okay and move on down the road?
Yeah,
I'm totally comfortable with that one.
Yeah,
if y'all
the
are.
recommendation was to approve that with the condition that additional landscaping be added to screen the HVAC. And I think what that's talking about specifically is kind of in that corner in front of them, something taller than the ground cover that's there, so that from the street, it's blocking that view of.
There is no ground cover there. It's
Well,
all
the
grass.
street view picture I'm looking at is some sort of green material in front of them, but, and we're flexible on that. That's just part of the condition, so.
Okay.
Okay, commissioners, do we have a motion?
I will make a motion to approve item 1 of HPCA 24000083
I'll second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a
with
second.
the condition in the staff report, specific findings and conditions, yes.
Okay, we've got,
Just number 1, and then I thought you were continuing number.
Yeah, that was just for number 1, wasn't it?
that's just for one, yeah. Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, that item has been approved. And now we've got number 2 that we need a motion
Make
on.
a motion to continue item 2 to December 4th meeting.
Okay, we've got a motion to continue that to the December 4th commission meeting. Do we have a second?
I'll second. Oh,
We've got a second.
yeah.
Okay.
Got a couple of seconds.
Yeah, we just need one. Okay, there we go. Commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, that item has been continued to the December 4th commission hearing. Okay, thank you. We'll see you in
Thank you.
December.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. And just get with staff on kind of timeline to get some documentation to us.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, that takes us to number 6, HPCA 24-00087 at 4020 Northwestern Avenue. Is this also a church?
Crown Heights Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application by Haven Menken Architect for Aaron Kruger, Crown Heights Church, for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace windows elective, and 2, construct screening enclosure elective. The windows are on a later addition, kind of to the rear of the church, that are metal windows, and the proposed replacement windows are aluminum windows. Generally, the guidelines don't support an aluminum window product, but based on the age of the portion of the building where these windows are located and based on the design and appearance of the windows being replaced, you all may see reason to exercise some discretion on window material replacement. I think we did recommend a continuance on that one, but you all may see fit to do otherwise. I think generally speaking, given the placement on the building, the age of the addition, the design of the windows, they may not be a big detraction from, they may be the most appropriate option for a window replacement in this area. On the screening enclosure, it is proposed at 8 feet, which we cannot administratively approve an 8-foot fence. The commission has the ability to approve up to that height, and the height is somewhat dictated by the dumpster that's being screened by the fence. So that's the purpose that 8-foot fence height is serving. And it is located at the southeast corner of the church on the rear side elevation. So you have a recommendation to approve the screening enclosure. You have a recommendation to continue the windows, but kind of a verbal staff leaning toward maybe approving the windows if you all feel like they're an appropriate option
Okay,
for the
thank you.
property.
Are you the applicant?
Yes, sir. I'm Haven Mankin. I live at 10909 North Lynn Avenue in Oklahoma City. I'd like to just say Aaron is our pastor, Aaron Krieger of Crown Heights Christian Church. I happen to also be a member. The church is in a prominent position for this historical district. It sits right up on Western between 40th Street and 39th Street. And the church has a long history, as you probably know. The area used to be Oklahoma City Golf and Country Club decades ago. The church was built Sorry Hill and Sorey were the architects. They had started in 1941. I'm not sure if the church was when it was actually finished. But anyway, it doesn't really matter to the case other than it's a 100% solid masonry building. So we have masonry inside and outside. It's solid masonry. The windows are original windows. They've been patched and refinished over some 80 years. And we could keep doing that. But that doesn't solve the problem for the church. The only way the church can help on its energy conservation and money going out for utility bills, and as you all know, churches are funded by the congregation only. The only way we can improve the energy efficiency of the church is at the windows. We've looked, and I've talked to staff about the air infiltration, the ice buildup with these single glazed windows. We have problems with birds getting into the building. Installation contractors on some of the window units have actually just cut through all the metal and stuck the window units in and tried to put cardboard around them. The view that you see right now on those upper windows, we're not wanting to replace all the windows in the church, just 6 on this north side. And, but we want to get rid of the air conditioning units. There's 2 up there on the 2nd floor. And we're planning to get rid of those, and that's going to help the look of those windows too. We've looked into how can we replace the window, and we want it to look the same. As you can see, there's horizontal mutton in each of the lights, top and bottom on a single hung window. It's only 5/8 of an inch wide, and you can't hide a desiccant bar on insulated glass units in 5/8 of an inch. And we've looked at wood, aluminum, steel windows. We can't find anything where we can have insulated units in the top and bottom of these single hung windows that you see and have that horizontal mutton bar remain as it looks now at 5/8 of an inch. So, and we understand that the commission has approved simulated divided light windows. And in this case, we want to use a 5/8 outer mutton, a spacer bar in the space inside the insulated glass, and another 5/8 bar on the interior. So from the street, from 39th Street or from Western, the windows will look exactly the way they do. The sill of these windows that we want to use, these aluminum windows, exactly matches the size of the existing steel windows. The jambs for the new windows are only 1/8 of an inch narrower than the existing jambs of the steel windows. As I've already said, the muttons will be exactly the same, in the same pattern. The only real difference that we have is in the meeting rail for a single hung window. In the case, the new window would be 1 inch wider. But as you can see in this photograph where you have on the left a pair of windows, you have a steel support in the middle. The middle window's the same way, and then the triple window on the right has 2 of the steel supports. Now, in some cases, the steel support has been cut, but the new steel supports, the new steel center post is 5/8 of an inch narrower than the original ones. So we're extremely close. And we feel like allowing us to change only these 6 windows, that we can improve the energy efficiency of the building. Our ductwork and HVAC is still very old, and in often cases does not provide the temperature in the room, hence the window units. But the use of these rooms is changing with the church. We feel like that not being a classroom anymore, we won't have the latent body heat in the classroom with so many people. We can do away with the window unit. But when the window is damaged, we can't do away with the window unit as we'd like. Obviously, it'll make the church look a lot nicer from 40th Street. So we ask for your approval to allow us. I think we've done a good job trying to match the design and sizes of these window elements.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, what questions do you have for the applicant?
I'm pretty comfortable with this. I don't, that was a really thorough explanation, and I feel fine about it, largely.
I was going to kind of defer to our architect on the commission, his thoughts and how he.
My personal opinion is the simulated divided light more appropriately matches the character of the windows from the street, which is our purview, so I would support that selection.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, any questions? I think there's 2 items here. Any questions from the commissioners on the fencing? Because I'm sorry, was that staff
May I ask
recommendation?
staff, it was listed as elective. We don't see this as elective.
So what elective means is that you didn't do it already, and it's not a code enforcement matter.
It is a code enforcement.
Oh, is that
matter.
one code, y'all are being required to do
That's
that?
what we understand.
Okay.
I believe there was a complaint from the neighbor on the east.
Okay. We, or I may have not been aware of, we may have not been aware of that. But it's really a note for us, so it doesn't make any difference to you.
There was a complaint that screening, they wanted screening, not that you had already done screening.
That they wanted screening, yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
yeah, yeah.
And we limited it to the maximum 8 foot that's allowed in your guidelines.
Okay, yeah.
Commissioners, any other questions for the applicant on this? Do we have any members of the public that wish to speak on this item? Okay, there being none, do we have a motion?
Sure. I will motion to approve items 1 and 2 of HPCA 24-00087 with a unique circumstance on item 1 being that due to the age and architectural style of the church as it exists, a simulated divided light is an appropriate replacement of the existing historic windows, and then citing these specific findings for item 2.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve 1 and 2. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we've got a second. Commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay. Number 1 and 2, both of those items have been approved.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Commissioners.
Thank you. Okay, next up, we've got item 7, HPCA-24-00093 at 2820 North Robinson Avenue. Katie, tell us about this project.
So this one, this is in Jefferson Park, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application by Klaus Ryman Philip Architect PLLC for Raymond Jacobs for certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct multifamily residential dwellings with detached garage elective, 2, install fencing elective, and 3, remove, install various paving elements at site elective. This will look familiar because you all just recently reviewed the rezoning application to allow for this development. And then last month, I believe, you saw an informational presentation on the design of the project. This does meet all the parameters for the zoning crafted in the SPUD that was just approved by council, actually. So it's been through every step of the approval process. By and large, it meets all relevant guidelines for building materials, development pattern of the property block and district, design, proportion, architectural character appears to be compatible with, but not replicating the historic character of the surrounding area. There are some specific details of the project that are called out in the staff report where we don't have complete documentation, But given the scale of the project and the extent to which the commission had already seen and voiced support for the project overall, staff did feel comfortable recommending approval with the condition that those items be submitted to staff. There is some fencing that's proposed that, as shown, does not meet the guidelines for administrative approval. It's too far forward. This is the fence on the south side of the building, so that would either need to be moved back or be made into a transparent material. Doors need to be, door documentation needs to be submitted that shows a wood door for the pedestrian doors. Window details need to be more fully documented. There was some discussion of that at the previous meeting about mullions and brick mold and just the overall kind of design components of the windows. We don't have any light fixtures, roof ventilation, mechanical equipment, those sorts of things included. That could be done later as an administrative approval. We have the ability to administratively approve light fixtures, for instance, or it could be something that is submitted to staff as a, that is a condition of the approval that we get all of those things incorporated. And then any other components that the commission thinks need to be addressed could be submitted to staff. That is basically the staff recommendation, and the applicant's here to present.
Okay, the applicant is present. Please state your name and address.
Klaus Roman Phillip, 2801 North Hudson, and my client and the property owner, Marty Jacobs, is here as well. If you have any specific questions for him. But yeah, so we were here last month, and I appreciate everyone's feedback. I think it was actually really good feedback, and I think we've kind of incorporated most of all the comments. So we're back with the, I think this is the first time we've actually heard the, have the actual hearing. It was more informational last time. But so we've made those changes. I know there's some information that we still need. I'm not aware of any, I think all the lighting that we have, like any kind of porch lighting, stuff like that. Currently that's all recessed or hidden, that wouldn't be like a physical fixture that's on the wall. So, but we're happy to submit any kind of cut sheets you need for that. Yeah, I think same with windows. We talked about, we had a little bit of dialogue about having, like if it's a pair of windows, having like a mullion in between, which we had a detail that we sent, but I'll do a sketch of like an elevation of what that would actually look like. So there's some items that I think we can pretty easily provide to staff if staff is, feels comfortable reviewing those. And then as far as, I think the one item is the fence, and I want to make sure I understand, so you're specifically talking about the fence along Robinson on the south of the building? Okay. So I know that Monty had the intention, we thought like a permanent or like a solid, like a brick wall or something would be too massive. And actually that was a comment from last time that we thought was a great comment. I think it was you, Sarah, maybe that mentioned that. So anyway, we've changed it to have more of like a transparent metal fence, and we're still detailing that out a little bit. I think we had we had some potential designs, but I'm not sure. We might be able to submit that separately as well from a material standpoint, but if the material for that fence on the south, that is a concern of where it's placed, if that was a transparent material or semi-transparent, would that meet, I guess, would that meet the guidelines? I know we don't always look at other properties as precedent, but I know the property directly to the south, I mean, their fence goes all the way up to the front as well, so, but you see that somewhere, some other places up and down the block, but, obviously we want to stick to the guidelines as close.
Yes, I think the property directly to the south, the fence does come pretty far forward, but I think it's a chain link fence, so it's not really, there's no, visual impact.
Well, that's pretty transparent.
I think if this was, I don't have the dimension for how far back that fence is from the front corner of from the front wall of the building. If it's back at least 6 feet and it's transparent, then that would meet the guidelines for administrative approval of a fence.
6 foot, is that That's
Yep.
the guidelines, okay. 6 foot. So chain link fence, 6 feet from the corner, I'm kidding.
And doesn't necessarily have to be chain link, but a wrought iron style fence.
Please
No, I'm
don't bring
joking.
back.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that to you.
Yeah. Chain link can only be 4 feet, actually.
Oh, 4 feet for chain link? Well, that's interesting. Maybe we'll do chain link. No.
And I should say, on the transparent, there is a percentage of how much of it has to be open. So just because it's a fence that has holes in it
Right.
doesn't necessarily mean it qualifies as a transparent fence. So we want to look at that too.
You know, you do bring up an interesting point, though. So if it is chain link, we can go within 4 feet of the corner? Is that
No,
what it's-
4 feet high.
Oh, 4 feet
for chain link,
high,
yeah.
okay. I was about to say, maybe there's, okay. We'll consider that. I'm not sure we're gonna have an answer for that today anyway, so I wonder if it's all right with Monty, maybe we can defer just the fence portion, come back and get everything else approved. And yeah, I wonder if we can either we just continue that and we, you know, if it meets the guidelines, actually, if we say, okay, we can come up with a transparent fence or you know, percentage of transparency that meets the guidelines, and it's 6 foot back, if it kind of meets that requirement, I'm not sure that we'd have to come back, but if it's anything different, then we'd probably have to come back. Is that correct?
Right. So we could continue that item for 1 or 2 months, and if we can come to an administratively approval solution in the meantime, then it wouldn't have to come back to commission. But if we can't get there with something that staff can administratively approve, then we would just bring it back with whatever you all land on.
And right now, that's condition 1 of the staff recommendation. So if we approve that with the conditions and they weren't able to get there, what happens then?
So what I think I would recommend is pulling out item 2 and approving items 1 and 3, and then continuing item 2. So then that way that one item's not hanging out the rest of the approval.
So it'd be conditions 2 through 5, I guess, maybe for the rest. What are details? Okay. And we'll get with you after, should we be approved, to get you that additional documentation you need.
Okay, commissioners, do we have any questions for the applicant on this project?
No, not any others, no. If nobody else wants to speak to it, I'm happy to make a motion.
Let me ask, is there anybody from the public that wishes to speak on this item?
Okay.
Here's, there's nobody?
Regarding HPCA 24, sorry, it just says 24 right there, hang on. 24000093, I would motion to approve items 1 and 3 with the agreed upon conditions and specific findings in the staff report.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve
Second.
numbers 1 and 3. Now we've got a second. Commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov, although I don't have anything up yet. Okay.
And I can see him laughing, so we may not get anything.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Milner,
Okay, I vote yay.
Jordan,
Yay.
McBride. Poor,
Yay.
Ramey,
Yay.
Wood.
Okay, that passes. Okay, number 1 and 3, and now we need a motion for number 2.
Okay. For HPCA 24-0000093, I would motion to continue item 2 to the November 6th meeting.
Does that work for you, November 6th?
4th, right? Oh, sorry, November.
Yeah, when
No,
would we
December
need the
4th,
materials?
November
for that?
6th, okay.
I think, yeah, we can get the materials.
Sorry.
I mean, you need it, we need it by next week, right?
Yeah,
On 15, okay.
Okay,
we'll get there.
okay, to the November 6th meeting.
Okay, we've got a motion to continue number 2 to the November 6th commission meeting. Do we have a second?
Second.
We've got a second. We're going to do another roll call vote?
We've got a working one, woohoo.
What was it
John
up?
doesn't.
I don't have it. I don't have it. Can you just roll call? I vote yay. Thank you.
All right, appreciate it.
That passes as well. That item's been continued. Okay, thank you.
See you next month.
Thank you.
Maybe.
Okay. Our last item for individual consideration, number 8, HPCA-24-00099 at 837 Northwest 39th Street. Katie, tell us about this project.
This is in Crown Heights, Ward 2. We are very Crown Heights heavy this month. Everybody got fired up to do stuff. Consideration and possible action on application by Jonathan King, PMH Construction LLC, for Ryan Ferguson for certificate of appropriateness to item 1, construct attached pergola elective. This is the first time the commission has seen this item, and it is a proposal to install a pergola at the rear of the dwelling. Staff's primary concern is that the pergola is attached to the house, kind of tying into the roof at the rear of the structure. We did provide a recommendation of continuance, recommending a revision to the proposal for a freestanding detached pergola or other type of freestanding accessory structure.
Okay, thank you. Is the applicant present?
My name is Keith Maudlin. I'm representing PMH Construction for Ryan Ferguson, the
Okay.
homeowner.
And your address?
My personal address or the home address?
Either one.
Yeah, his address, 837 Northwest 39th Street.
Okay, tell us about the project.
Yeah, we were hoping for consideration on a attached pergola. I know the commission's kind of against those because they want to be easily removed. The way and if you look at the pictures, you'll see how they attach to the roof. We use composite blocks attaching to each rafter. That way, if it ever needs to be removed, it's easily removed. The height, we would be right at 9 foot high finished. The customer really wants this attached to the house for weatherproofing purposes with a full shingle roof. You do not see this structure from the street. There's trees lined back there. I don't think the neighbors don't have any issue with it. I don't think it really takes away from the historical look of the house. And that's pretty much it. Just hoping you would consider, and if not considering this, would we be able to get a freestanding approved?
Okay, commissioners, what question do you have for the applicant about the project?
Katie, can you speak to his, the information regarding how it's attached and kind of what the counter argument to that is? Because I definitely have no problem with a pergola.
I kind of can't because I'm not a person who builds things. So I can't really look at this and say, oh, that would definitely work really well or that will fail miserably. I might defer to our architect on the particulars of the installation method. I think just generally in principle, our staff's position is that a pergola, an accessory structure, should be freestanding. And if we're attaching to the house and we're tying it into the roof, it needs to read like an addition. It needs to match the architectural style of the house, and we treat it more like an addition, a porch, et cetera. And that's how it's built.
And I'm just looking through trying to understand the details to answer that question.
So if you look, there should be some pictures on there that show somewhat how it's attached. We put composite blocks on top of the existing roof. Those are flashed in, and then there's a ledger board running across, and then our rafter is just attached to that ledger board. So, I mean, structurally sound, but also if they ever need to be removed, it would be a pretty simple removal.
It's tied in at the roof, so.
It's not, we're not cutting into the roof at all.
It's tied into the wall under the soffit of the roof. Is that what?
No, it's actually on top of the roof.
It's on top of the roof.
Yeah, it's on the very top edge.
And you say you flashed over it?
Yeah, so there'll be composite deck pieces that are floating. They're basically on top of each rafter.
Like sleepers?
Yeah. And then there's a ledger board that goes across, and then the rafter's just set on top. It's, easily removable. If you ever had to remove it, you'd basically just be replacing a row of shingles.
How do they attach through the roof? Surface?
With the screws.
Okay.
Yeah, screws, and it's flashed in, so you don't have to worry about water leaking.
It's flashed in.
the composite pedestals are flashed in, so no water penetrates the roof.
So you're flashing each sleeper
Correct.
and lapping that under what, asphalt shingle?
Not correct.
So you stick it under, flash
Right.
it over.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of, I wish we had a better picture of that, but that's, you can kind of see where those blocks are on top of that. And we install these all the time, never have any issues. Again, it would be easily removable if future homeowner or somebody wanted to take it down.
And
Just to clarify, that's an example. That's not the subject property.
Right,
They
that's just an
haven't,
example.
they didn't already do it. This is just a
Correct.
photo the applicant
Correct.
provided.
And the desire and the need for that is that the current fascia is, top of fascia looks like 8 feet.
Correct.
That's what you're aligning with.
Correct, the gutter
So
lines.
dropping down below makes it not a
No, it
really
doesn't really,
habitable space.
correct.
Okay.
What's the roofing material on the pergola?
It would be a Owens Corning Oak Ridge Estate Gray shingle, asphalt shingle that matches the house exactly.
So it's an addition, except for it doesn't have walls, is like how,
And the reason you don't want to put posts 12 inches away from that exterior wall and let it free float is,
It's really just kind of, it makes it more difficult for us to tie that in and put a shingle roof on there and make that really,
does it have a gutter on it currently?
correct, yes.
So you could float it above.
And we will consider, yeah, I mean, that, if that's what you would like us to do, we will do that. That was the second option, but he just really liked the look of it being attached and tied in like there. And those posters kind of in the way.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way that you're proposing it is, is a good constructible solution. I think free floating it out, my personal opinion is I don't love the idea, even though it's flashed and probably epoxied before each screw goes through or pre-drilled or
sure.
whatever. Like, I don't love screwing holes into my roof membrane personally, but I think both solutions from a constructability, from an architectural perspective, I think are fine. It's on the back of the house. I don't have a huge problem with either if there's a preferred method, but if the guidelines say it needs to be freestanding, I think that is achievable as well.
is this one kind of like when we had the half-story garage, 1.5-story garage? Should we call it an addition and consider it in that capacity? Because I don't know many pergolas that have a shingled top.
That was, my question was, do we have an overhead look at the roof anywhere in this packet?
Don't
It
know
will
if
be
we,
very
Not-
visible from the
Of
neighbor's
the,
houses.
of the
It's-
house, well,
Just of what one of these would look like if I were standing in the next, actually, some friends of mine live next door, and if I were standing, upstairs in their house, if I'm looking down, what does it look like from a bird's eye view?
yeah, we don't, I mean, it's gonna just tie, it looks like it's gonna be part of the existing roof.
But flat?
Yeah,
So
yeah, well, there'll be a slope on it, obviously.
So is what I'm looking at in the attachments that sort of show a pergola look, is that the reflected ceiling plan that I'm seeing then?
Yeah, we don't have anything with the shingled roof.
The floor plan, it says house side, and it sort of shows all the slatting. That's just the reflected ceiling plan that I'm seeing?
Correct.
I'm not.
Correct.
Okay, so then so those are pitched
Correct.
Yeah, where,
at what slope?
1/4 inch per foot.
And you're putting shingles on that?
and is there anywhere we can see that slope from the side in this packet?
I don't have that, I'm sorry.
Okay.
so
I love the idea of a pergola, but I don't think I'm there yet on this proposal.
think
I
it's a
don't really
pergola.
understand how it's gonna look with the shingles. I don't have,
Shed roof, and I would have concerns with the asphalt shingle on a low slope roof.
yeah, the side elevation does not show any slope to it at all. And yes, I agree. I think there's a certain slope that there's a minimum slope you're supposed to be at.
And we can adjust that as well. I mean, obviously, we don't want any issues with it holding water. But yeah, I wish we would have had slope attached to that.
it'll appear flat. Quarter inch per foot isn't gonna be visibly.
Yeah. But I don't know that you would typically recommend asphalt shingles on something that's that low slope.
There's a reason we have a lot of TPO south of
Yeah.
50th Street. I conceptually love a pergola out there, have no opposition to it. For me, it's less about it being, well, it all becomes one problem, but I'm not, if there is a great construction method for it to be attached, maybe we could come up with a unique circumstance that everybody feels comfortable with, not causing any harm to the house, but I don't know that I could get past the shingles on the basically flat roof. And would definitely want to see what that looked like from a bird's eye view and a side elevation indicating the slope.
If we send something in showing you a drawing that with more of a slope to it, would you consider passing that without us having to come back next month? Or is that?
I don't think I would. I'd really want to see it. Like, I feel very confused about what it would look like.
I don't think putting a 312 pitch on that is gonna look like what your client wants it to look like.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in and out of a lot of historic homes, and I've never seen a shingled roof that flat.
And one thing that I look at is I'm looking at specific finding number 2, and I haven't seen or heard anything from the applicant that meets this specific finding where it says that new pergolas shall, being the attorney, that is mandatory. So we have to have evidence, or at least that that if it abuts or attaches to an existing structure, that it will not allow for moisture to accumulate against or infiltrate the existing structure. So there's a mandatory requirement that if it's going to be attached, we have to have evidence that moisture will not accumulate against or infiltrate the existing structure. Infiltrate's harder, but I think really accumulate against is the key word that I'm looking to make sure that staff has the guarantee that that will not happen.
Okay.
Otherwise, we can't get past specific finding number 2.
And I think your detail that you explained does that. My concern is that you're gonna go back and modify this to put a pitch on it, to do whatever, and we're gonna end up at an outcome that nobody's really happy with. From what I'm seeing, I think having a freestanding pergola with a R-panel or corrugated metal top on top of your slatting that sheds back in towards the house or off to the side and kind of catches in the gutter, like, to me, something, or if it's not, I don't, maybe I misspoke and guidelines don't support that, but some sort of top to that is a more appropriate for a low slope, low pitch roof system.
Okay.
That freestands and uses that gutter system. I think that's a better outcome.
And that was the second, option that we looked at. He just really, the homeowner really wanted that attached to the house originally, but yeah, we'll just, I think we'll probably just send back over.
Yeah, I'd pitch potential maintenance concerns with penetrating that.
I think the other alternative, if he really wants something attached, is to do something that is truly an addition, a back porch addition to the house with a more, this is a very traditional kind of colonial style house, and pulling from those architectural elements, the dormers on the front, and having a true porch roof, porch columns that come out from the house that match the house.
Okay.
That
would be another option.
That don't necessarily have walls per se.
Right,
Not
just a
enclosed,
covered back porch.
Yeah.
That matches the house.
Sure.
And I'd even be comfortable personally with if it were a low slope roof that was a TPO that lapped in appropriately under those shingles and was done.
Okay.
Okay,
great. Well, that gives us something to go off of, so. I think he'll probably go with the freestanding and do a, like I said, some type of corrugated system on there, so. Yeah, sure. Okay.
Okay, let me ask before we consider a motion, do we have any members of the public that wish to speak on this item? I don't believe so.
So I was going to ask about the corrugated system. I mean, we've had people propose the clear on top, and we have pushed back. So I'm curious, what is, I don't want to give them false hope or recommendations.
So I think we've had some of those where they were on a corner and where they were visible. We do have pretty open language for approving accessory structures of all sorts, and those can have a roof on them. I mean, on your consent docket, you approved an accessory cabana thing with a solid flat roof that's in the backyard and not visible from the street.
But not as a pergola.
But we just
right?
don't put that under the category of pergola. There's a lot of discretion for staff to sign off on pergolas that truly are very transient, temporary wood, not a solid roof structures as an administrative approval. And when the more permanent they start to get, we want you guys to see those and sign off, so.
I just have a bit of trivia, which is that this is was Yvonne Chateau's house, one of the 5 moons of Native American prima ballerinas. Fun
That's
fact.
true, yep.
For whom the OKC School of Ballet is named.
So I guess the question for you is, if this is continued, which meeting do you want it to be continued to?
The next month's meeting, please.
November 6th?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioners, do we have a motion? It sounds like this might be continued.
I'm happy to make a motion to continue item 1 of HPCA 24-00099 to the November 6th meeting.
Okay, we've got a motion to continue, although mine says it was motioned by Poor.
That was Jordan.
Yeah,
But I'll second
Commissioner
it.
Jordan made it. Do we have a second? Oh, there we go. Okay. Commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, that item has been continued to the November 6th commission hearing. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along. Other business. It appears we have one item, BOA-15748 at 708 Northwest 30th Street, Apartment 4.
This is in Paseo Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application by Kathy McBride to provide a recommendation to Board of Adjustment regarding an application for a special exception to allow for home sharing. This is a renewal of a special exception, so we've already reviewed and recommended approval of this once previously. It is in the Paseo neighborhood with the HL overlay, so the provisions about the homeowner having to be on site and it be their primary residence don't apply in this district. Staff did not see any concerns regarding the impact of the home share on this property. They haven't had, to our knowledge, complaints or anything during the previous cycle of them operating as a home share, so we did provide a recommendation of approval.
Okay, thank you, Katie. Is the applicant present? Nope. Commissioners, any comments?
Nope. I think
We've,
if there were no complaints from neighbors or anything, I think that's a good sign.
Yep.
So
Okay.
Yep.
We have a recommendation from the
I'll-
commission?
I'll make a motion to make a recommendation to the Board of Adjustment for BOA 15748 for recommendation.
We've got a motion
Second.
for a recommendation. Do we have a second? We've got a second. Commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov.
Mine didn't come up, but yay.
Okay, that has been recommended approval. Do we need to go back and note that Commissioner McBride voted? Do we need to?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's good.
okay. We
Yeah.
got, oh, okay. Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. Okay. Okay. Next section, communications and reports, administrative approvals.
Nothing in particular to call out. We are always happy to answer questions anyone may have when you see anything on that report. And just one withdrawal. I believe that's one that they were going to be able to repair the siding and not replace it all.
Okay.
And nothing to report under administrative closings. I can report that our National Register nominations from the previous month have made it through City Council. The Certified Local Government grant that you all provided a recommendation on a while back will be at council on Tuesday. And I think that's it for outside bodies.
Okay, anything from the municipal counselor's office? No. Okay. Okay, next meeting date. The next regularly scheduled meeting for the Historic Preservation Commission is Wednesday, November 6th at 2 p.m. at the Municipal Building, City Council Chamber. New applications for this meeting were received October 1st, 2024. New information on projects continued from today's meeting to the upcoming meeting must be submitted to staff by 4 p.m. Tuesday, October 8th. The next regularly scheduled workshop for the Historic Preservation Commission is Wednesday, November 13th from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. in the Embark Large Conference Room, Suite B at 431 West Main Street.
I do want to kind of take the temperature on if people have that on their calendars. We've been talking about, or if we might find an alternative date, and I'll send an email as well. But, you know, since over the last year or so, we've had lots of rezoning applications come through, and there's been lots of questions about kind of how that process works from both commission and from neighborhood representatives. Thought that might be a good workshop opportunity to kind of talk about some of that process stuff. And what's the commission reviewing? What's the commission's purview? What happens next as it goes through the process when we do see a rezoning? Like what we just, you know, we saw the finished product today to review the CA. But it's kind of what I'm thinking for that workshop. So if folks, let me know if you're like, I'm already not available for that, or I'll also send an email to follow up. But just FYI, we might actually have it on the scheduled date this time.
I would like to do that, and I think, I mean, for me, that date works well. I think if we move it, we're going to get into the territory of moving in like 2 months, and I just feel like we do that a lot.
Right.
And I think it's kind of our obligation to the public to have those.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think if we go any later, we get into the holidays, and then
Right.
we're pushing it to January.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay.
Do we have any update on adding another commissioner?
We have continued to work with the mayor's office on not just getting that spot filled, but getting some spots filled on our other design review bodies. So I'm hoping that maybe this next council agenda, we might see some appointments. But
In
yeah,
the vein of
they're
owing it to the
aware.
public.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Do we have any items from commissioners?
Where are we on, I know we had been meeting in a small group of the commissioners to discuss solar panels and some other
Yes.
modifications to the guidelines. So where are we on that, and like what's the next
Yes.
step to regroup or to?
So we had kind of put that on hold while we had all these other ordinance amendments that were going through the process that our division was handling. And then we've also Angela's been out for an extended period. Lori Griggs, who handles downtown, that's under my supervision, just today ran out of the office and is going to be out for good reasons, but an extended leave. So had a little bit of like juggling the workload and what are the priorities kind of thing over the last several months. I think now that our ordinance amendments are through the process and done, maybe we get through this next workshop and then regroup on circling back around to some of those guideline revisions. We had the camp on Friday, and one of the things that we did talk about at that was design guidelines and updating those and how you evaluate different components of your guidelines, alternative building materials, things like that. Lots of the things that come up for us all the time. So I think we're in a place now where we can get back to it. Okay, and I did just want to add, thank you, Katie, to you and the staff for organizing the camp workshop.
It was great.
I thought it was really informative. It was a lot of information, but it really was good to hear from other preservationists from outside of our state and to hear some of the same challenges that they are facing. So it was really good. So, and commissioners that could be with us that day, I appreciate it. So, and thank you to you and the staff for.
We mostly just bought snacks, so.
Yeah.
And
also appreciate it still.
Yes.
I mean, you had to organize it and get it together, and it was appreciative because it really was informative. So.
We were really pleased with the turnout for it and the participation and engagement that, you know, it was a long day. So I was happy to see people stick around and continue to be engaged and listen. So glad you all enjoyed it.
Thank you. Do we have any citizens to be heard? no citizens to be heard, I think we can adjourn, 4:15. Thank you.